Hello everyone, my name is Ryan Cam and welcome back to my road to Wolfman. With a new Wolfman movie coming to theaters this coming January, I'm covering every Universal Studios Wolfman film in honor of Wolfman. I've already covered The Wolfman, the 41 version, and I was joined by Kyle from Flet's Pop Culture 13, link in the eye in the right-hand corner. Go check the video out. It was a great time. But now we pivot from the only solo Wolfman film in the Universal canon straight into the Monster Mash era, and we kick things off with Frankenstein meets the Wolfman. This was directed by Roy William Neill, pretty much the only guy who was allowed to direct a Basil Rathbone Sherlock Holmes film, and it sees the return of Lon Chaney Jr. as the Wolfman and the return of Bela Lugosi to the Universal canon, however, not as Dracula, but as Frankenstein's monster. We'll get to that. It tells the story of Lawrence Talbot, who is once dead but is now surely alive. He is awakened by two grave robbers in a pretty big accident on their part, and, well, being an immortal is a bit of a drag, and so he basically wants to die, and so he figures if he enlists the help of one Dr. Frankenstein, he can get that help. However, Dr. Frankenstein is dead, but Frankenstein's monster is about to be alive again. Irresistible force meets immovable object. This is a case of the background and the history behind the making of this film is way more interesting than anything going on in the film itself. And let me just get out in front of it and say, this is not an outright bad movie. I covered this for a Scary Mania many moons ago and I enjoyed it then, and having rewatched it for this video, I still enjoy it for what it is. It's a story definitively of two halves. The Frankenstein half and the Wolfman half. The Frankenstein half is not good. The Wolfman stuff is fantastic. And just like the two monsters clashing themselves, the movie is just a bunch of this, a bunch of ideas that never really see the light of day and just ultimately amount to it's just kind of there, really. Let's talk about the Frankenstein stuff first. And like I talked about, Bela Lugosi is the Frankenstein monster in this one. The old rumor was that Lugosi was supposed to be Frankenstein's monster in the original Frankenstein from 1931, and Boris Karloff was never supposed to get it. It's kind of dicey on the source. So the rumor is that either Bela Lugosi turned down the role or just like never heard about it. It's really hard to say. When even Dark Corners reviews can't give you a straight answer, you know it's obscure. So from basically the long story short, Bela Lugosi ended up being Dracula, cementing his legacy there. But Bela Lugosi struggled quite a bit in the acting world. He got good parts here and there, but Universal was not too kind to him. And again, it's a long story, but to make the long story short, he's Frankenstein's monster here because quite literally he needs the money. That's the only reason why he is here. All the Frankenstein stuff is way more interesting learning about what it should have been than what we actually got. Again, long story, but at the end of Son of Frankenstein, the last solo Frankenstein film, Frankenstein's monster was imbued with the brain of Igor, the hunchbacked assistant to the son of Frankenstein, played by Basil Rathbone in the last Frankenstein movie. And so, Brain is in, he's like, I, Igor, will live forever, but then is blind, and then the monster gets crushed in a fire.
Everybody got that? Good.
And so, by the time we see the monster in this movie, he is covered in ice, is mute, and is basically back to even to the point where he Lugosi inadvertently coins the classic Frankenstein walk of like you ever think of Frankenstein doing that? You can thank this movie for creating that. If I have confused you, I am sorry, but I almost confused myself trying to recap that for you. I really did try my best on that one. The continuity of the Universal monsters is like whose line is it anyway, where everything is made up and the points don't matter. Frankenstein meets the Wolfman was supposed to be Frankenstein, the monster that wanted to live forever, meets the Wolfman, the monster that wanted to die. And there was supposed to be a battle there. And there was a battle, but it was severely chopped to pieces in the editing room. And so what we end up getting is something that is hinted at to what the movie's about, but never fully followed through on. That whole hacking and slashing of the screenplay would basically lead to Frankenstein feeling like he's just there because Universal has the rights, and Frankenstein was, and in many ways still is, a big time and recognizable name. So put Frankenstein on the bill, that means box office. And yeah, like Frankenstein's involvement is just it just feels very contrived. The fight at the end between Wolfman and Frankenstein's monster is actually really fun, but the lead up to it, it just feels like Frankenstein is just, well, Frankenstein's monster, excuse me, is just kind of there, really, like I've been talking about. Frankenstein's monster got the shaft, while Wolfman got the gold mine in terms of story, because everything involving the Wolfman in this movie is great. Larry Talbot is a cursed immortal. He doesn't want to be a cursed immortal anymore. He wants to die. And Lon Chaney Jr. crushes it just like he did in his own solo film. There's a great scene where he, being Larry Talbot, and the last descendant of the Frankenstein family named Elsa are going out to dinner, and they're at this outdoor restaurant, and this guy sings about a song about how life is short and death is long and you want to live forever. And Larry Talbot freaks out and he's like, "No, I don't want to live forever. I want to die. I want out of here." And it's better when Lon Chaney Jr. did it. But in that moment, you're just like, yeah, this dude's going through it. And like, he just wants out of here. Like, being a Wolfman kind of sucks. If this was just the Wolfman 2, the movie would have been a lot better. But instead, we get Wolfman and Frankenstein. It feels like two completely different movies, and they just clash frequently. And it's kind of painful in places. That being said, though, I still do get quite a kick out of this movie. And I know I have severe problems with this story, but when the whole monster stuff is going on, it's a lot of fun, and Lon Chaney Jr. is bringing it. So there is good stuff here, and there are very good things that I would recommend and say this movie is worth the recommendation, warts and all. But just know that this should have been way more epic than what we ended up getting. With that being said, though, I'm going to give this a good rating, but a high good rating. I'm giving it a high good rating for Lon Chaney Jr. and Lon Chaney Jr. alone. Honorable mention, Bela Lugosi. He was trying. But Lon Chaney Jr. crushes it as always. There's a lot of fun sets. The fight itself is really fun. There's just, it feels like a tragedy in places because learning up about what this movie could have been was way more epic than what we ended up getting. But if you have seen Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, what did you think about it? Let me know in the comments. I would love to read what you have to say. Stay tuned for next Thursday when I will be covering House of Frankenstein, where we're full-blown monster mash now, and it's kind of a graveyard smash, but also kind of not.